So, good. So you heard Ethereum is not scalable. So I'm telling you, no, it's not the case. So I'm talking about ARTIS. So we put there deliberately sustainable, scalable, and secure there. And now in the second sentence, I can say ARTIS is a fork of Ethereum and is extending Ethereum and is part of Ethereum network, as you would have probably heard previously from Simir regarding sidechains. So I will not go into all the details about how the technology looks like. So you're a sophisticated crowd, you can ask your questions, what you want. So we'll keep it very kind of basic from the point of view of blockchains, what they are, what they do. And the most important thing is that blockchains are great. So this has to be stated. This is kind of a known truth to us all. And it should be clear to everybody else out there, but obviously it's not, because otherwise we would be even fuller than we are today. So the important part for me is that they're censorship resistant, resilient, and secure. So why did I put the Mona Lisa there? Because that's a very old painting. It's very highly secure in the Louvre if you go there. And it's very well kept, and it's a representation of the history preserving nature of a blockchain. So a blockchain can preserve the past very well. So you would always see that something changed if somebody wants to change the past on a blockchain system. You have difficulties to erase things. You have difficulties to get rid of things, which is very important if you think about the legal consequences in connection with GDPR. So if you are putting there deliberately or not personal data there, and you find somebody who wants to have it deleted, and you are kind of a central provider of a service, which is called a blockchain, whatever, then you are in big trouble because you have to rewrite all your blocks. And that's kind of nasty if you have to do that. And if you're ordered by a judge, then you can decide if you do it or you shut down your blockchain service. So the data structure doesn't give that. So just be aware of it. That's a cool feature. It can be a curse. So you can't really say. It depends very much on what you're doing. So be careful what you do with it and use it wisely. So the other thing is, the unfortunate thing, blockchains are very slow. So all the blockchains are very slow. So if you ever hear a blockchain is doing 100 million, whatever kind of numbers out there by the marketeers, they don't know how blockchains work, and therefore they tell you kind of nice numbers. So usually there is some sort of truth in it. You can run in second layer, off-chain, side-chain, you can run things. But on the major blockchain itself, just be, let's say, in the range of 200 transactions per second. All the delegated proof-of-stake systems, the real number, don't use the EOS website, the real number is like 200. So it doesn't give you more. So you just need to be aware of it, and you need to also take into consideration that you have a block time, so you need to wait some time until you get the confirmation. So if you define your application, in your application you have to have that in mind, that it needs some time to put it into a block. Let's say global consensus, somewhere in the range of 2 seconds minimum. 3 seconds, maybe, yeah, something like that. So that's the lower range of what you can achieve. Everything else, everybody who claims it's faster has a 3-node network in his own center running, and they know each other very well. So everything else is just taking a little longer, and take it into consideration. The other thing is, if they use proof of work, then they are really inefficient. So, and now the Bitcoin price went a little down. So also the hashing power went a little down because it doesn't make sense to run proof of work mining anymore for some of those which don't have the most efficient hardware, which don't have the lowest energy cost. But nevertheless, the higher the price of Bitcoin, the more miners will be, and the more miners there will be, the more energy will be used for proof of work, because it's economically feasible. It will be just done. So all those proof of work chains, they will consume, if they're successful, if you find a proof of work chain which is actually not burning a lot of energy, then they're not successful. Of course, then they don't burn a lot of energy. But if they're successful, they will burn a lot of energy. So proof of stake might be an option. So we don't know yet fully. So a lot of things are happening there. But at least there you don't use the very energy consuming proof of work consensus, which is super simple, super nice, depends on the application. I don't bash proof of work generally, but you just need to be aware of it. And this is all leading to very little adoption. So if we're looking at the current D-app space, and even Elastos they had some kind of runway, and if you're looking not just Elastos, you look at NEO, you look at EOS, you look at Ethereum, there is a very, very little adoption for the application. So decentralized applications, for various reasons, actually they have very, very little ground out there. And one of those problems you have, let's take is Ethereum for an example. In Ethereum you have rather high transaction fees. So you pay like 10 cents minimum currently, like 20 cents, 50 cents, was already up at $4 or $5 as well. But at that time Bitcoin was like $30, and so it's for most business cases, for most D-apps, it doesn't make any sense to put an application with regular transaction on that particular blockchain system. So it needs to be cheaper to be feasible for real life applications. Or, of course, it can be gaming or gambling. There it doesn't matter. People anyway work for or try to lose their money. So basically it does not matter if the transaction fee is a little higher. So it's like, it's gambling, so it doesn't matter. So we came up with an idea basically last year, and then we came up with the name ARTIS, and then we were heading for an ICO. Then we hit in full brakes on the ICO. Before basically everybody was anyway saying no, ICOs are dead. I think if you have had a sneak peek into ICO land, then you're just happy, or that it stopped, kind of thing. So it was not a environment which you should be exposed to. So it's, in my opinion, a lot of scams were out there, and you tried to use scam tactics to scam everybody else on social media and everything. So basically you were airdropping tokens like hell, and then you were claiming there was something worth, and then you were employing half Nigeria to spam Facebook and Twitter and everything. So you should not do that. Nobody should do that, but everybody did it during the ICO craze. So therefore, I would say it's good that it stopped. It's good that also we stopped, and now we are happy that we still do a blockchain. The ARTIS Sigma mainnet, basically you're in the heart of getting it born, which is efficient, fast, and secure. fast in the sense if you compare it to Ethereum, it will have faster block times like 5 seconds. And efficient, it will use a permission system for the proof of stake. So it is not that you're a block generator free to be in its, yeah, well, in delegated proof of stake, it can be hard to become a block producer as well. So a lot of proof of stake systems have that actually. So for all techies, it's an Ethereum sidechain which will be connected via bridge, and when Plasma is ready via Plasma, uses proof of authority consensus, and a known validator set stakes the coin. The consensus will be exchanged for Honey Badger if that is of interest for you as well. So that's coming up in the future. So now I would show you the film if it would have any sound.
If you are a developer and blockchain is your business, you already know that providing, maintaining, and using dApps on Ethereum can be quite expensive. On top of that, buying and handling Ether is still too complicated for most users. And even those who do have Ether are unlikely to spend it on dApps right now, for reasons that are all too obvious. Did you know there is a better way? ARTIS is a multi-purpose plasma chain network that will bridge the gap between dApps and large numbers of active users, while keeping transaction costs affordable so everyone can benefit. ARTIS also introduces streams, an on-chain way to exchange value in real time that will change what kind of business models can be run on a blockchain. But first things first, ARTIS provides users with free, spendable ATS coins. Getting started only requires users to download the Minerva app and create an identity. It's easy to use and built for everyone. Once on board, interacting within the ecosystem is incentivized, which leads to sustainable growth and an active community willing to engage with your exciting projects. Now to get the ball rolling and to support both sides of the ecosystem, ARTIS sponsors eligible projects with a sizable stack of free ATS in order to get your dApps ready and deployed by the time users start flocking in. And it gets even better. If your code runs on Ethereum, it will run on ARTIS. Is this for you? Did we pique your interest? Do you have any questions? Excellent. Visit artis.eco for more information and to get in touch with our team.
Good. So, I would like to thank Dario for the extensive work on that video, because you can't imagine how many hours he basically put into this one. Let's give him a short round of applause, please. As you can see, I did not change to the new one. Sorry. So, ARTIS, born on November 14th, 2018, so it's a rather new one. The first trust note, Didi, is it already online?
Not on Sigma.
Not on Sigma. Okay, well, it will be done till today. So, bootstrap phase is November 13th. So basically what we said, that we have a 1-year time frame where we have the ramping up of the nodes, where we have the signing of the support of dApp programs using ARTIS, as just said in the video. So to give you a couple more numbers, there is a pre-mine of 300 million ATS. And 10% of those ATIs will go to those projects. So basically 10% of the total pre-mine will be distributed to dApp developers. So what else to say? So you can see the naming. So we went for a naming that we can kind of make it recognizable. So currently we started Sigma 1, which tells you there might be more than one mainnet. So because it's a sidechain of Ethereum, it can be more than one sidechain. So this is also answering the scalability question, because basically when one chain is becoming full, you can use another chain for doing the same. So you can also think of, because the code is running as on Ethereum, you can even imagine dApps which are using all networks. So basically we are using the same address format, because that helps a lot when you do your programming. You can use the same address format on different chains by just connecting to different chains from your application. So if you're doing something which is more important on Ethereum, and in the same application do something on ARTIS, and maybe do something on another chain which is Ethereum compatible, you can imagine much more kind of complex use cases specifically tailored for whatever you need. I wanted to jump in a little bit on the web pages, because nope. Holy shit. So for all devs among you, so you find Lab10 Collective on GitHub. The latest upload was on PWASM ERC77. So that's, we extended, well, that's dev talk. So let's skip the dev talk. So all the devs, they will just like to go through those kind of things. So as you can see, we're definitely putting up the source code, open source, for everybody to look at, to use it. There is important stuff there. I think this one is a very important one. Everybody who is in details will know that. And yeah, well, we love to hear your feedback on this one. If you want to join on those projects, just feel free to do so. And we try to keep that updated and regular kind of, yeah, getting into that kind of process working with GitHub. So we have a GitLab running internally, and we're connecting the GitLab with the GitHub. So basically all we do is open source. What you see here is the statistics page for ARTIS Sigma 1. So basically currently there is the boot node and the master of ceremony, and as soon as Didi, who was extensively working on the first trust node, we call them trust nodes in our case, so there you will see the trust nodes coming in within the next days and weeks. So then another one, so the Blockchain Explorer currently looks like this. So that's a very simple Blockchain Explorer, and we're intending to merge or move to this Blockchain Explorer, which gives you a lot of more information and a nice UI for all the things you want to do that. So that's a peek on the Tau 1 testnet. So basically we call all the testnets Tau, and we call all the mainnets Sigma. So that makes it simple to distinguish. And yeah, well, that's basically from the sneak peek into the system. And let's go back to the presentation. And it should be some fun in there as well. So we hid an Easter egg for all the ones which like to go on a search hunt within ARTIS. So as it is a public blockchain, so you should be able to find what we actually hid in the Genesis block. And the second queue is Nelly Bly. So who knows Nelly Bly? Yeah, you know. So I stumbled over Nelly Bly because I was looking for something very interesting happening on the 14th of November. And Nelly Bly was going on a trip around the world, like the 80 days around the world, on November 14th, very long time ago. So, and because that's such an interesting woman, and nobody knows her, we thought we put an Easter egg about something about her on the ARTIS blockchain. So, thank you very much. That's a couple of our guys here. And as we know, ATS is back. Thank you. So, questions?
Yeah. So, what's the token use case for the ATS token? Is it similar like Ethereum, paying your network fees?
Yeah, additionally, you need to stake if you're a trust node. So, trust node has to stake, and of course, transaction fees. Yes.
What's the incentive to sign up for the app and create an account? So why should anyone do this?
Well, we are, you know, the Minerva app is actually is a application which is allows you to interact with the blockchain system. So basically, not just ARTIS. It might be all kind of Ethereum-like systems using all your valuables from different chains. What we actually do there is to establish Minerva as a kind of software on your mobile, which is a gateway to blockchain activities, so that basically a third-party application is connecting to Minerva and using Minerva for the assets or for identity, and that's the second part of the application. So the application is handling your identities and it's handling your crypto assets. You might sign something with your identity and transfer some crypto assets, or you just use your identity, or you just use your crypto asset. But basically, the Minerva is in the middle, so we are not kind of trying to create an immediate kind of incentive that you download the app. It's a to-be-used app for other applications, so that you don't have to put a wallet in your app, for example. So
basically it's about identity, I guess.
It's identity, self-sovereign identity on Minerva.
If you have other wallet apps, it's not really necessary to download the app, and I think it's the important part might be to onboard users who are not already in the blockchain space.
Yeah, therefore it's specifically very different to regular kind of wallets you know in the space.
Yeah.
So you don't see all those nice numbers and all that kind of specifics about transactions, which are so usual in the blockchain space. It's very much more designed in a way that regular users can actually interact with it. So the UI is very different to usual wallets, you know. Yeah.
So, what's actually the deal with the side chains? I mean, like in comparison to the main chains, do they have any disadvantages or such? Well,
yeah, of course, there is some kind of, well, depends who you talk to. It might be a philosophical disadvantage or a real felt disadvantage. So a sidechain is usually making a compromise on decentralization from the node block generating point of view, because if you would have thousands and thousands of nodes, then you're getting into similar kind of time frames as other blockchains are, so you can't speed it up that much, and you're also more confined in what you can do on those kind of super decentralized kind of networks. So decentralization is lower, and that one tells, or basically you have a theoretical threat that you're risking more on those chains than on a kind of like Bitcoin, like Ethereum chain. So security from a technical perspective, maybe not from a practical perspective, but from a technical perspective, you could argue they are less secure than those chains.
I'm not sure if you're aware of Loom Network.
Yes.
They already, I think they're also a sidechain on Plasma chain for Ethereum. My question would be how you differentiate from them apart from the Minera.
Okay. Well, the Loom network is actually offering a kind of SDK that you can create your own Plasma chain connected to Ethereum, and what you actually have there is a UTXO, a Bitcoin-like kind of blockchain, and not a smart contract able blockchain. So ARTIS itself is like Ethereum, using the same virtual machine, using parity on the low level, and using extensively WASM as smart contract binary for the virtual machine, the second kind of virtual machine you have there on the node. So you can run smart contract code which you can't use on Loom Network, because Loom Network is just like non-fungible tokens which you can transfer to Ethereum via Plasma bridge. In our case, we will use a bridge connection to Ethereum, and if you have a regular bridge which is run by the trust node operators, you're much faster for transferring assets from one chain to the other, because you just have to wait as long as it is needed to be sure that the transaction happened on the other chain, which is much faster on ARTIS than on Ethereum. So basically you probably have to wait like, I don't know, 6 blocks on Ethereum or 10 blocks on Ethereum to be really certain that it is kind of in that main branch, and then you kind of release it on the other chain, and then you can transfer the asset on ARTIS. And a Plasma connection is always a lot slower. You will have to wait like 2 days to get your transfer from the Plasma chain to the main Ethereum chain. So it is a kind of safe kind of way of getting it back to Ethereum, but it's a very slow way. And in our case, we will have a fast way and a smart contract compatibility with everything you do for Ethereum.
Okay. And last follow-up question. You said you're funding projects which are going to build on ARTIS. How much is the funding approximately? Does it depend on the project, or is it equal for every project?
No, it will be not equal. So it depends, of course, for the project. What our intention is to fund up to 100 projects and use the 10% of pre-mine. So basically 30 million of coins distributed among those.
Okay, and what's approximately the USD equivalent?
There is no, because basically that's a blockchain in its infancy. So you would say it's like Bitcoin 2009. So nobody knows how much it's worth.
Okay, and is there any way to get ARTIS, the token, apart from getting funding from you?
If you find someone who has it and give it to you, yes.
So obviously, but I guess I wouldn't find one because you're lying.
So what we're of course expecting is that at some point it will hit some exchange. It will be likely to be a DEX in the beginning, and it depends very much on the projects if it's gaining momentum or not. So we're really in this kind of, okay, well, currently if you find somebody who gives it to you, then he is probably asking something. I don't know how much. But there is no official price. Right now I would say it's 0, but you won't get it for 0.
So it's not 0.
Depends, you know, if there is no market, you can't tell the price.
So it's like Schrödinger's cat.
Say again?
Schrödinger's Katze.
Yeah, well, if you can open the box. Any more question? Yes?
You said that it's possible to create a second sidechain like Sigma 2. Would it be possible to create a second chain as a private permission blockchain? Or is it always the same kind of?
Yeah, we intended to call them differently. Yes. But this would not be a Sigma chain. It would be a Pi chain. So we came up with a name for 3 types of chains. So Pi chain for something like permission, private, kind of rather specific. We thought about something like public interest as an acronym for it. Then Sigma chains, which are public, basically everybody can interact chain, and Tau for the testnet chains. So there might be more than one because, yeah, you might need some kind of specifics on those. And nevertheless, we intend to have basically the same kind of code working on all those chains to try out the kind of features like for example streams. So we were very vocative about streams when we were talking about ARTIS in preparation for the ICO. We still consider this a very valuable way of transacting on a blockchain. So basically, for the ones which don't know it, it is you create a transaction, then coins or tokens are flowing from one account to the other seamlessly. So basically, as a function of time. So we usually refer to it as a water tap. So basically, you take a water tap and you open the water tap once, and then basically the money flows. And you look at your wallets, and whatever you do, let's say you're the receiver, then you're getting more all the time. So you see how the money is coming into your wallet. And just the other day we were discussing about there might be some funny ideas what you can do with games where you basically let money flow and find out a nice game mechanic and build on top of that. So this is something which is very specific for ARTIS. You won't find that in any other blockchain. And that's something what we put very low level in, so that to make it as efficient as possible from the node software. But that's available on testnet just as well as on mainnet.
I have another question about your identity application. Is the onboarding process or the identification of someone in accordance with the Money Laundering Directive? And also with the Anti-Money Laundering Act in Austria, so I can use it for, let me say, I can prove my identity with the bank.
Well, that's very much up to the identity you're actually using, because the application itself, it will just allow you that you create your identity. If that identity is of any kind of reference or usable for AML and verified KYC, depends on what you do after creating it. So you might create it and then you go to your bank, and then your bank is KYCing you that particular identity, so that you can have a digital proof that this identity is KYC'd and AML kind of applicable. So yes, it can be used in that way, but that's not application specific. That's really like how it's used in connection with the application.
Okay.
So, you're all thirsty, right? So, yeah, let's close the evening. Let's go on chatting. I thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoyed the time here. Thank you very much for coming, and have a nice evening.